Welcome back to another tutorial. Now today I'm going to be looking at using this gorgeous golden urn. I have looked at using this before. I think it was in an arrangement around St. Valentine's Day, and I can link it so you can pop back and have a look at it. I'm thinking today about doing that really trendy style that is taking the wedding world by storm at the moment, and it's that really soft eclectic style that I think is almost inspired by the Dutch Flemish paintings, those gorgeous paintings that had an opulent choice of flowers in them. My flower choice isn't quite as opulent as back in the Dutch and Flemish era, but I have got a very bright and cheerful summer colour combination of flowers that I would probably describe as almost clashing, and they would be colours that lay alongside one another on the colour wheel. So if you're at college and you're learning about colour, then I'm using an analogous colour harmony, so it's 3 or 4 colours that lay alongside one another on the colour wheel, or at least I'm getting as close to that colour combination as I can. And it's a colour combination that we're going to see a lot in weddings for 25 and 26, and it's just about coming into fashion for 2024. Now I'm probably going to do this arrangement twice, so you're going to see it today using floral. I nearly said using floral foam. Today I'm going to be using wire mesh, and then I'm going to recreate something similar but using floral foam. So for those of you that prefer the wire netting and you want to learn some more sustainable ideas, today's video is going to be perfect for you. For those of you who still like to arrange in foam or are maybe still learning, pop back in a few weeks' time, because I'm going to recreate this design in foam in a similar sort of manner but slightly different. And then hopefully I'm pleasing everybody that comes along to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Sharon. I've also got a Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group. You can join me over there and meet some like-minded people. Let's find my scissors. I'm possibly going to be using a knife today because some of my flowers are quite soft stemmed and fairly delicate, but I have got a scissors on hand as well. I've got wire netting scrunched up into 3 sort of layers and then moulded into my container, and I've pushed it down so it's below the edge of my container. When I used it before, when I used this container before, I raised it up slightly because I wanted to achieve a bit more height, and I had heavier flowers. Today I've got more lightweight flowers, so I'm thinking below the container will give me more support, and I'm going to top it up with water at this stage. And one thing you need to remember when you're creating a design, doesn't really matter whether it's in floral foam or whether it's in wire netting, you need to have really good balance so the design doesn't tip forward. More so if you're using water, because that's obviously going to cause a right mess should it tip forward. So if you're creating designs for churches, wedding receptions, for gifts for people's home, always make sure it's stable and really well balanced so it doesn't tip over. Now you probably know that I really love to have a design in this crescent shape, and I do think that these types of containers, these urns, really suit that style. So that's what I'm going to aim for today. But when you are using wire mesh, it's almost a case of letting the flowers speak for themselves. It's unlikely that you will be able to achieve those very geometric shapes that we often look at on the channel, those basic styles that you learn at college or you learn at flower arranging classes, because it's much harder to get that set style with wire netting than it is with floral foam. So you've almost got to go with the flow of the flowers. Now then, look at this gorgeous, brightly coloured marigold. I nearly said magnolia. Isn't that just wonderful? And if you look at it, it has what I call personality. It's bending and twisting, and I'm not going to be able to force that into a shape that it doesn't want to go. So I'm going to make sure there's no leaves at the end of the stem, and I'm going to work that into the chicken wire or the wire mesh. Oh, that's just a bit too short to go in my arrangement, so let's tuck it in a little bit deeper down. So the natural shape of that marigold is to drape forward. I'm not going to be able to put it in high or form a shape with it because it doesn't want to go. So it's beautifully draping over the front of my container, and I know those 2 colours are very different at the moment, but when I incorporate all the other colours, you'll hopefully be able to see the colour combination that I've gone for. Now again, this one has got a lovely little nodding head. These are imported marigolds. We haven't quite got marigolds in the UK yet. And I think when you're starting to learn with the wire netting, you've really got to look at the shape of the flower and allow it to sit in the position that it wants to go. And today they're going to be on one side. This one is shorter because it had snapped in the packaging, but that is going to sit down. I think we're going to bring it forward. Sit down there, brings a bit of weight to the bottom, helps to cover my wire netting. And if you like symmetrical designs, then you're going to notice straight away that I've got all of my orange colours on one side, and that colour blocking, that colour grouping is really fashionable at the moment. And if you're used to symmetry and you want those matching flowers on either side, then this possibly isn't the style for you. Now on the other side, I have a beautiful orange rose. This is actually a supermarket rose. And when I bought it, it came with this gorgeous, look at that, everything's gorgeous today, this fabulous cerise pink rose. And if I hopefully bring the camera in close, there is almost like a pale sort of cerise pink around the outside of that rose, which helps to link them together. I think they are just perfect. But again, if sort of clashing colours aren't your thing, then you might not like this. These are much straighter, as roses generally are, but to almost bring some orange over to the other side of the arrangement, I'm going to use them to create a bit of height on the opposite side. Because they're tall and straight and stiff, they're going to work much better at giving me the height than draping over the front of the container like the first couple of flowers. Chicken wire is an art. The flowers don't always stay in the position that you want them to be, but you have to keep working within that wire netting so they become much more stable. And instinctively, this side is draping forward and this side is much taller. So I'm probably going to exaggerate that shape that's naturally formed. So far I've used 2 roses, so I'm going to add another one in just to give me, I think, some height. And I'm going to think about what I'm doing. Height. We're going to go in with a bit of extra height. So I'm not looking to balance things off on either side. It's a really unusual sort of asymmetric shape. Now I'm going to introduce some clashing colours, and this first cerise rose is quite a big head. It's quite a heavy looking head. I am removing quite a lot of the greenery off this because this type of style doesn't have a great deal of foliage or fussy foliages in it. And I'm going to use the head down low around the sort of same place as that very big marigold. And that is really going to cover that wire mesh and bring that really lovely colour down to the bottom. And then what I'm going to do with another of the cerise roses is pop it in at the back. Now remember, when you're using chicken wire, that you need that extra length on the stem, otherwise the flower stem itself isn't going to get to the bottom of the vase. Now I don't want this on the same level as my first spray rose, so that needs to be a bit shorter, and I want it to be lower in the back. That's going to help create balance by adding weight to the back. Don't worry if this one is moving around. It's going to help the colour be seen from the front, so it's going to create depth. And then I'm going to add another one up higher, so again we're creating that illusion of an internal triangle. I've got depth already in there, I've got height, and I've got some width on the side, and it almost has this sort of very natural curve to it. And my next flower is this amazing Clematis, and that is going to hang so nicely down over one side. I think I'm going to remove some of the greenery and then the flower will be more dominant, but the natural curve of this is going to look beautiful with my orange marigolds on that one side. That's a bit too long. Now, one of the great things about arranging in wire netting is that if you want to pull something out and reposition it, you can do it quite easily. You don't end up with a great big hole in the foam. And then I'm going to bring one a little bit further towards the front. I'm going to see which one has the nicest shape. I think it's going to be this one. Now, one thing you have to be quite mindful of when you're creating a design like this is to cover the tape that's around the base. Now, if you look at my design at the moment, there is a lot of that green tape still visible, and I really need to bring enough material down over the front to help hide it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just jiggling these two around so that they're in a different position. I really want to have the clematis draping over the front of the container, and it's being a bit stubborn. It's not going where I want it to go, but I'm going to be patient. That's better. So it's not as natural curve as I would like it to be, but I'm still creating that sideward movement. And then what I'm going to do with my last one is place it in quite tall. Now, this stubborn orange rose is definitely swinging around, but this is going to come on the opposite side. And for those symmetry lovers amongst you, you're really not going to like this one because there's nothing on this side to match it. But as I add more flowers in, it's going to drape a little bit, but we've got extra material to go in the minute. We've got more materials to go in the minute. The overall shape is going to be a bit more pleasing and come together more clearly. I'm going to remove the leaves because I feel they're a bit heavy on the outside. And if you're not sure of anything, if it's not sitting where you want it to go, then you have the ability to move them around because the wire netting is very forgiving. Now, I do have another rose. It's got a few damaged petals on the outside, but we'll get rid of those. And I'm going to put this on its own in the middle, sort of the middle towards the back. And you can do that. We can allow one flower to be sitting on its own. It's going to give me some weight, and it's also going to help cover that wire mesh, and it's also going to bring that orange colour in towards the back. I'm going to cut it even shorter because I want it to be almost sitting on top of that wire mesh. Now, these styles I mentioned at the beginning are hugely fashionable at the moment, and this very sort of up and down eclectic style, this almost sort of whimsical style, is really quite fashionable for wedding bouquets at the moment. And that orange rose of mine does not want to stay where it's put, but we'll keep working, and eventually it will hold its position. So these are Scabious, a just wonderful shaped flower. It's got lots of sort of personality. I'm going to cut off one of the side shoots because I think it's a bit heavy as it is, and what's left can come over on the opposite side. Now, I can't angle this downwards because we don't have the foam, so it's going to raise up a little bit in the air, and it's going to look really bizarre at the moment, but it will come together as the design progresses, and it's almost like creating a painting and adding that next flower on that next piece of greenery. The design comes together towards the end. It looks a bit untidy at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it works its way correct and it looks absolutely gorgeous, or at least I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. So we have a nice little nodding head of the Scabious, which is going to work to my advantage on this right hand side, and I'm going to keep building up on that. Some larger flowers towards the middle, and hopefully draping over the front slightly. Don't worry too much if you have to play around and move some flowers back to where they initially started. That's all part of this game. And I think there are many sort of pros of working with wire netting. Obviously there's the environmental factor to consider, that we're not using single-use plastics every week. It's a far more relaxing way of arranging flowers, and it's really good if you have garden flowers, those soft stemmed materials that we grow at home. Those really intricate little spring flowers like narcissi, muscari and that type of thing work particularly well in wire netting because they're not being forced into a block of foam. That's now really coming together quite well. My next flower is going to be one of my favourites. This is Lissianthus, and this is the really pretty ruffled edge variety. This so well suits this particular style of arranging because we're looking for that almost like vintage look. And I'm going to place the more open heads down towards the base to help me cover my foam. I knew I was going to do it. To help me cover my wire netting and to introduce that softer colour to the base. Some of these smaller buds off one of the stems can work up towards the top. And I'm going to continue with some more open heads, trying again to think about placing them in patterns of 3 or groups of 5 so that we have that more visually pleasing arrangement of flowers. I'm going to continue the colour towards the back as well so that I'm helping to open up the design and create depth. Couple tucked right down low, and I'm hoping that we've got a fairly good shape there coming together. Now I am going to have to just twiggle, is that a new word? I'm going to have to fiddle around a little bit at the end just to ensure the shape is working well, and some of the flowers have moved position as I've been working. This area under here definitely needs covering. So this little Scabious here is going to work really well towards the front there. Little natural sort of bobbin heads. Now I did initially put it in this position here, but I've got 3 Scabious here, very much in a line, which is not really very pleasing. So I'm going to cut it shorter and place it underneath. So it's still draping forward over my container. It's helping to hide that plastic tape, but it's not in such a formal line with the 2 Scabious on this side here. And that's really what you're looking for in floral design, is for each flower to have its own space, not to be squashed in amongst something else. In this style of arranging, we're looking for the characteristics of the individual flowers to shine through. If they drape forward, put them in the arrangement, draping forward. They're standing up tall and straight, put them in the design so they're standing up tall and straight. Now the flower I'm using now is a Ranunculus, and this one is the butterfly Ranunculus. It is a little early in the season for the butterfly Ranunculus, and they have gone almost transparent. And that's generally a sign that they're starting to age a little. But I felt the colour was so lovely, and it worked really well with this colour palette. Now I'm struggling to find a gap. There we are, got one in the end. And I'm feeling that right hand side of the arrangement is complete. I don't think I'm going to get any more flowers in on that side, but I am going to have to work on hiding my wire netting under here. So let's go in with a short piece of the butterfly Ranunculus. Now in the autumn, or when the hydrangeas are about for us to buy, a really simple way of creating this design is to mass the hydrangeas on top of the wire netting so that you cover it really quite quickly. But when we've only got smaller flowers available to us, it's a bit harder to achieve. You could buy some carnations. Lots of people deem a carnation quite old-fashioned, but I still think they're a really versatile flower to use. Needs to be a bit shorter. And the carnation lasts so well. They come in so many different colour combinations. Bi-coloured, unusual colours, greens, whites. They are really, really quite versatile. And I think some people can be a bit snobby about using them, but I really do like them. So low down carnations to cover mesh, or in its proper season you can have some hydrangeas. Even big dahlias would work well. And if you're lucky enough to have a flower farm around where you are, then a mixed bucket of flowers from that flower farm where you have all the interest in summer flowers that have these beautiful curved lines to them are going to work really well. Now I'm thinking I'm almost at the end. I'm going to take a step back just to see how the design is coming together, and I've got some gold twigs to pick up on the colour on my base. You know I love a twig. And I felt this design was going to work really well with some gold twigs to link to the base. I have a couple of heads of the Lissianthus, which are a different colour, but these are going to work underneath. I've still got some wire netting that I can see from the front, and I know from the back you can see quite a lot of that wire netting, but we'll sort that out in a minute. Now I kept back some of the heather because this now needs to go in the front, if I possibly can, draped over the front. So I've got to look for pieces that have a sort of bulky end so that it will help me hide that tape. And if you're having difficulty with this part, then add a bit of greenery in. It's just this quite fashionable trend for this style of arrangement. Doesn't use a great deal of foliage. And then right at the back here on the one side, I can use some of the heather tucked in down low here. That will help cover that tape there. And I mentioned this a couple of times on the video. Your view is slightly higher than me, so you might see more of the tape than I can. But when you look at the photographs at the end, you will be able to see it from a better position. And if you haven't been watching me before, then stay to the end of the video because there are stills of the flowers, the individual flowers, and close-ups of the overall arrangement. And now the piece de resistance, I'm going to add in those gold twigs, which is going to give me a nice opulent look to go with my container at the base. And I'm going to try and bring that golden colour in from one side to the other. You've probably seen me use twigs many times in videos. These are birch twigs that have been sprayed gold. Something that is quite easy for everybody to get hold of and brings a lovely textural quality to the arrangement. Just some shorter pieces here towards the front. And I think I'm done. Now, if I haven't already mentioned, one of the beauties of working with wire netting is that if you feel anything's in the wrong position, you can move it around quite quickly. So when I photograph it, if I feel that something doesn't quite look right, I've never got my glasses on when I'm doing these tutorials, but if I feel that something isn't quite right, I'll move it around. But that is my finished design. A very colourful display for today, almost inspired by the Dutch Flemish era with a little bit of the Georgian era in there as well. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please do so. Hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial. Let me know where you're watching from because I find that absolutely fascinating. If you have any questions, put them in the comment box and let me know what you think. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye for now.